the Honorable Rick Green. Well, aren't you glad you came out on this hot Texas day? Well, I'll tell you what, it may be a little cold out here, but after that vote, or not so much of a vote that just took place in our capital, I think it's a good time to remind us that the politicians will never see the light until they feel the heat. And just as the good pastor said, it's a good time to remind us that there's a way to apply that heat, a constitutional, lawful, peaceful way to participate in this process. And that's why you're encouraging me simply by being here today and being part of this process. I say let's let this cold January day be the beginning of the next wave of we the people finding our voice and letting our values be counted in our Capitol building. It's a good time for us to say loud and clear that we the people are here to stay. Some folks think we shouldn't be here today. They think it was time to go home after November 2nd, which, by the way, we've already seen that one very large red, white, and blue tsunami hit the waves of the United States all across our nation on November 2nd. We had a huge wake-up call. And it didn't just happen in Washington, D.C. It happened all over the country. Now, I must say that probably the most beautiful thing I've seen in a very long time was Nancy Pelosi handing over that gavel. That was kind of nice. But it wasn't just in Washington. Massive political shifts have taken place all across America because we, the people, stood up and said, not on my watch. Not on my watch will freedom be lost. Not on my watch will my United States government become a socialist government telling me how to run my life. And because you've been willing to do that, we now have our government responding to us. It may be slower than we want, but we've got to recognize that for too long we enjoyed the blessings of liberty, but we ignored the burden that comes with those blessings. We were too busy. We were running our lives. We were raising our kids. We were running our businesses. We were supporting our churches and synagogues. We were doing those things to make our communities work, but we were ignoring what was taking place in our capitals, both here in Austin and in Washington, D.C. And as we did that, the politicians assumed we weren't watching, and they began to take over more and more of our lives. But that massive march towards socialism that began to take place in Washington, D.C. has awakened the American people. The sleeping giant is awake. We're paying attention. We're keeping our list, and we know who's been naughty or nice. We have found our voices. We have shaken each other from our slumber and said it's time to be involved and do our part. And the last election was a huge message to the politicians that we, the people, are here to stay. And it's much more than just the rallies, folks. I love these kind of things. I love coming together and encouraging each other. I love the rallies as an opportunity to let our voices be heard. But we've done so much more than that. After we gathered at the city halls and the courthouse steps and the state capitol steps and even at the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C., we didn't let it stop there. We went home to our families and our churches and we cracked open the books. We began to study and say, what is the secret of America's success? Why is it that we're the most successful, most powerful nation in the history of the world? And how do I do my part to preserve that formula? We began to crack open our founding documents and look for those secrets. And friends, when all over America, people have bumper stickers that say, read the Constitution, something good is happening in our nation. We're not just reading the Constitution, we're studying the Constitution. And we're not just studying it so that we can hold our public servants accountable. And by the way, let's not call them elected officials anymore. Let's call them public servants, because that's the attitude we're looking for. But we're not just studying the Constitution so we can hold them accountable. We're looking into that document and saying, hey, what is my role? Well, what's my purpose? Where do I find myself in the Constitution? How do I know what it is that I'm supposed to do as a free citizen to preserve this freedom for future generations? And people are digging deep to say, what's my part to protect that torch of freedom? If you told me 2 years ago that people all over the nation would be willing to come out and spend hour after hour, spend their time and their money and their energy to study the Constitution, to come and spend an entire Saturday with me walking through every clause, every amendment, every article, to spend their weeknights after a long day at work hours at a time, digging deep. If you'd told me that 2 years ago, man, I'd say you were crazy. But they're doing it all over the place. I was in Houston just a couple of weeks ago. 200 people came out to study the Constitution. You were there. Just a few weeks before that, get this, Chehalis, Washington, not a bastion of conservatism. 100 people came out to spend all day Saturday walking through the Constitution, looking for their role and what it is that they need to do to preserve freedom. Why? Why are you doing that? Why are you coming out here today, freezing your buns off? Why aren't you willing to spend your time and your money and your energy to drive in from all over the state? Why are we willing to do these things? We weren't willing to do them years before. We're doing them now because you get it. You understand what is at stake. You understand the value of this process. And you may think, and I'm sure some in this building behind me will think that I'm exaggerating, but let me tell you something, friends. The fate of the free world depends on you. Now, you may say that's an exaggeration. My wife would say it's cheesy. She says I'm the king of Velveeta. But listen, you think about the logic. The fate of the free world, I don't think anyone on this entire Capitol grounds would disagree. The fate of the free world depends on America. Is that right? America depends upon her constitutional principles being upheld, her value system being preserved and protected. That value system, those constitutional principles, depend upon you and me. They depend upon us upholding those principles. So there's your logical steps right there. The fate of the free world depends on America. America depends upon our constitutional principles being upheld. Those principles depend on you, friends. The fate of the free world does depend on you. This is serious, serious business that you're doing. And because you've been spending your time and your energy and money to do it, let me tell you, the liberals don't get it. The journalists that think that you're wasting your time. Paul Burka, liberal columnist for Texas Monthly, he said this weekend, he said that you're foolish. He said that you're foolish, that you are wasting your time and your money being here at the state capitol today. In his sarcasm, he says you shouldn't even be a part of the process. But see, here's the deal. The Burkas of the world, they don't get it. They don't understand sacrifice. They don't understand a willingness to do the right thing regardless of what it costs. They don't understand the willingness to do the right thing even if you don't win. Even if you don't get everything you want right now today. The persistence and the willingness to continue to come back and do the right thing over and over again. That's why it's impossible to imagine most liberal journalists or any of the Washington or Hollywood elite responding the same way that Nathan Hale did when he was captured as a revolutionary soldier, and the British, they sentenced him to death immediately, and Captain Hale, his last words before being hung, he said, "I regret that I have but one life to give for my country." See, they don't get that, but see, you and I do. You understand, and you're inspired by the words of Nathan Hale because you understand sacrifice, and you understand the giving of your time and your money, though small, may be less than giving of your entire life. It is not wasted, Paul Burka. It is a good investment in freedom, and it's an investment in the freedom of our children and our grandchildren, and we, the people, are here to stay.